Hi, Kristie.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, you're welcome.
I asked you to pick a song for us to listen to before we started. What song did you pick?
It is called It Won't Be Long by George Birch.
And why did you pick that song?
That was a terribly hard question that you asked. I love music. I went in a lot of different directions. I dang near brought in just a super fun song, like a walkout song, just high energy. But I decided to go with something more serious. I really love that song. I love the words. I love the concept behind it. It's really about YOLOing, which is something I've been all about, especially in recent years, but always. And then I really love that artist too. I'm actually going to be seeing him tomorrow at Lake Strand.
Oh my gosh,
But I have a
cool.
big joke about him. So he opened for someone else I was seeing a few years ago. And I didn't know it, but I had COVID. And he was one of those artists who's like, he's still, I don't think, overly well known, but even less so at the time. He was one of those artists that was like, anyone who wants to meet me, come meet me, I'll meet you all. And I'm a big, if I like your music, like, I want to meet you, I want to tell you, I want to fangirl all over you. So I went and met him, not knowing I had COVID, and so I always joke, remember when I gave George Birch COVID? That's my joke. So
Did you ever hear that he got sick after
No,
that or anything?
I
Oh my gosh,
didn't.
good. That's funny.
I mean, he could have, but I didn't.
Well, maybe you'll meet him tomorrow and
We can only hope, and I
he
can
can-
apologize for potentially giving him
was it in
COVID.
Minnesota? You can be like, last time you were in Minnesota, did you get COVID?
Sure was.
Oh my gosh. So was that in 2020?
No, I think that was actually in probably 2021 or even 2022. I've only knowingly had COVID one time. And yeah, it was a while after it was kind of all the rave. Because of where I work, we had to test anytime we had any illness, and it was quite a while before I actually got it, at least that I know of.
But yeah, the lyrics to that song, life is a lot of things, but it's not long. That's intense.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, you're really into music and you're in a band even.
Yeah, kind of a worship band, yeah, at my church.
Are you still actively doing that?
Yep, we play just once a month, but it's enough to kind of, I think it's all that everyone involved can really handle, between just all their other commitments. We're kind of all around our age, and so just have a lot of other things going on, but it's enough to make sure I'm always keeping up on my skills, so.
And guitar?
Guitar and vocals, yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. When did you learn guitar?
I learned originally late high school. I started teaching myself because I had just been a band choir nerd all throughout high school. And then in college, I even took a course or two just when we had to do all the general courses and whatnot. And then I would say once I got into my major, kind of put it down up until COVID, actually. And then I started taking lessons again. Well, not really again. For the first time, I really took organized lessons virtually during COVID. And so since then, I've been playing very regularly.
That was a smart thing to keep busy during COVID.
Yep. And I was kind of done with school, at least for the time. For the first time in a while, I took way longer than necessary to finish school, but so it kind of freed up some time too.
Why do you think music is so important to you?
I think it was always important growing up, and so it has some very deep roots in that way. It's also, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just naturally this amazing musician, but I do have some natural talent for it, and I just never really did with sports or anything else growing up. So that was a part of it too, was that came easier to me, so I really stuck with it. I think it's also just, it's a way to feel your emotions, it's a way to escape sometimes, it's a way to get you happy or sad, and I just think there's a lot of bonding you can do with people over music too. Clearly, you must agree. You keep having people pick songs.
Yeah, I say music is my drug now. I didn't always let myself feel it fully.
Sure.
Until I let go of other addictions, and now I take music in completely, I feel like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that like songs and really don't pay a lot of attention to the lyrics, which is fine. until you really point it out. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that is really deep, or I didn't think of it like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm much more of a like beat person and rhythm, and but when I listen to the words, obviously, you get even closer and deeper to a song. But like I've just always kind of like I've always loved music, always been obsessed with it, but not at the level of some people until recently. Like now, I just fully immerse myself every morning. I just play music as loud as I can to get out of bed. Even.
Yeah. That's a fun way to get up. I love that.
Yeah, so I remodeled my basement and want to find renters, but I'm like, but then I can't listen to my music this loud at 5 a.m., so what do I do?
Maybe you just have to put in the lease agreement.
I guess so. Like, get ready, 5 a.m.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
So I feel like you and I have probably known who each other are for 15, 20 years, and I've known your husband forever. But it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that we actually like spoke to each other for the first time.
I was trying to think about that too, because Kelsey, who we'll talk about in this story, I'm sure, I feel similarly, but before that trip, I know I had spoken to her. And with you, I'm like, I don't think we had ever sent even a sentence to each other, even though we were probably in a lot of the same places at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And then it happened to be a random trip to Canada.
I know,
that was the first time we talked. Yes, fake
Iceland.
Iceland, because you, Greg, and Kelsey were supposed to go to Iceland, and then a volcano erupted.
Yes, yep. So, yeah, we had been planning this, well, we'd been talking about this trip for 9 months before, and it was their trip, the two of them and another girl, another friend of Kelsey's, who didn't obviously end up coming, but they wanted to go, and I kind of invited myself, and they were happy to include me, so that was very nice. And we've been talking about it, but Kelsey really wanted to see the Northern Lights. That was her goal. That was kind of why the trip was happening. So we planned nothing. She wanted to wait until we could kind of see somewhat of a forecast. For me, that was insane because I am a huge planner. But I'm like, it's their trip. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna push this. Aside from the fact that in my job in healthcare, I do need to request time off in advance. So we kind of got down to the wire of I need to get some days off. So we picked a date range, and I took all the days off with the plan of I'll give some back or whatever. It's easier to give them back than to not get them off. So we picked our date range, and then yes, a very large volcano erupted. I believe it was in December of 2023. And we were planning to go in February. So even still, we're like, we'll still go. It'll be fine. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. Until it was not fine. Until it got down to a couple weeks before, and we kind of looked, and some of the things we wanted to do, we wouldn't have been able to do. And we just kind of were like, it's a big trip to not really have the experience we're hoping. So we decided not to do it. I already had the time off. Kelsey obviously loves to travel. She had the time off. So we threw out a lot of different ideas. We went in a lot of different directions. At one point, we wanted to go to Norway, found this cruise, but then there was no tickets to the cruise and the dates I had already taken off, so then that was out. We talked about a couple different options in the US, maybe even a couple different options in Canada. Greg threw out Banff. I never heard of it. We kind of looked, kind of skirted over it, whatever. And we had gotten to the point, I remember at least being like, okay, we're just not going to be able to go anywhere. That's how I was feeling. And then I think it was me that just said, well, this Banff place does look pretty fun. And so we all kind of looked more into what he had sent. And before I knew it, we were going to Banff. And we had, at that point, already figured out that Kelsey's other friend was not going to come. I had a friend who was kind of the backup because we kind of didn't want to include a fifth person, and then, then you need a bigger vehicle, like all the stuff. But he was kind of a backup, except between the time he agreed to that and the time we actually planned it, he had decided to move to Alaska a couple months after that. So he's like, yeah, I just really can't go on this big trip right now. And then it was after we'd even booked everything that you were coming along.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think it was just 2 weeks, a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey had asked me a couple times, and I kept saying no, but then I was going through a breakup, and I needed him to get out of the house, and I was sick of waiting around. I'm like, I'm just going to leave, and then he'll have a couple days just to get everything out. And I was even to the point where I'm like, I don't even care if he takes all my stuff. I don't care if I get home and my house is empty. I just need to get out of here, and the mountains are the most healing thing in the world. It was such a great trip, and you and I bonded so much, and we'll have to throw some pictures on here of the mountains. I mean,
It was, so I've done kind of a lot of traveling at this point, and it was the most beautiful place I've been so far. There's a few places I want to travel twice just because I want to do so much traveling. Hands down, I will go back. Lord willing, I will go back probably a couple times. Yeah, just one of the best trips for a lot of reasons, but the beauty of the area was just amazing. And I don't know if I told you, but I really think it was where we were all meant to be. I remember standing in a coffee shop because I'm an early bird. You and Kelsey, not so much. So I'd like ducked out to get coffee because I was just too excited to sit and wait for anyone else to get up. Ducked out to get coffee, and we didn't even know there's this big ski race in the town we were staying in that weekend. And when I walked in, they had all the like banners for the teams, and the coffee shop was just decorated and all these people for whatever reason rooting for the Czech team, and I am like 50% Czech, so I just instantly kind of felt like, oh, that was kind of really cool, whatever. And it was at that moment that someone from home had texted me and said the volcano erupted again in Iceland within those 24 hours. Like, we would have been on our way there. So it was just kind of a moment of, wow, we are meant to be here. It was crazy.
Kidding.
Mm-hmm.
No kidding. And you're going to Czech this fall or next fall?
Yep, this fall. Yeah.
What are you most excited for?
I'm not really sure yet.
Definitely not the food, because you're not a foodie.
It's not the food. We'll be in Prague for 4 days and Italy for 4 days. So I'm excited to be able to visit both of those places.
Are you at least excited for pizza and pasta in Italy?
I'm excited for pasta. Yeah, I'm really excited for pasta. I did find we've all talked, so I'm going with a group of my family, and we're all talking about like maybe doing different day trips, not all together, but there's one I found that involves a hike. And so if I actually get to do that, that's probably what I'm most excited about. Awesome. Sounds like it's just also very beautiful.
So we got tattoos in Banff, and I told you before we started that, yeah, I wish you had worn shorts, but obviously I understand why you didn't. It's freezing and raining out, and it's July next week. So for people watching, it's July, and this is how we're dressed.
Yep.
But we'll show a picture of your tattoo. I know which picture I want to show to you. You sent me a picture of you at a concert.
Oh, yeah.
After we had gotten back. And
yeah.
I love it so much. It's of the mountains.
I love my tattoo. Yep.
And yeah, so you're a huge adventure person in general. Tell me about your blog and some of the adventures that you've done in the last year, 2 years.
Yeah, the last few years. It really started as a travel challenge, is what I dubbed it. I started that in the summer of 2021. And what kicked that off was really COVID. Everyone, I think, has their own experience working in healthcare. I think I have a little different experience than a lot of people. It was just hard, and especially for people who are out and about a lot in general, only going to work where things were really hard, and then being at home was really tough. So I started a travel challenge in July of 2021, and it was to go one new place out of state a month for a year. And I did it, except for 1 month I missed, but it was one of the best things I've ever done. Like, when people ask you about your accomplishments, it's up there. With my job and all the normal things, it's up there for sure.
Yeah, because people are gonna say, "Oh, that's fun," or like, "Oh, that's just fun and easy." And you go, "Oh, you got to travel," but it's a lot of work. I'm sure to plan a different state, 12 different states, because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 states touching us. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yes, definitely some work, but it was just what I needed at the time. So I kept a journal at the recommendation of a friend, and so I had all these stories about it. So I did that. People thought it was pretty cool. And then it must have been 2022 sometime that I started realizing my dog was getting old. My dog was getting old. I made the mistake of going on Google, finding out the average lifespan of a lab, and seeing that he had outlived it at that point, like basically just distraught about this, blah, blah, blah. And one of my coworkers at the time, she said, you know what you should do? You should have a bucket list with your dog. So I really made it like the travel challenge, not going out of state, but just taking him one new place or doing one dedicated thing with him a month for a year. So I did that. We made it all 12 months for that. And then it was last year. No, excuse me. Yeah. No, sorry. 2 years ago. My time frame is just getting all mixed up. So it was in 2023 that I read a book with my friend Erin, our mutual friend Erin. We have a book club. I use that term very loosely because it's her and I. And we are basically just reading the same book around the same time and then briefly discussing it. We had read a book and we were into self-help for a while there. And one of the books we read recommended making 100 dreams list is what they called it. Basically a bucket list, but with 100 items on it. She is a completist. She had it done probably within weeks of reading this book. It took me a year because I just really didn't know what I wanted aside from knowing I had known I wanted to visit every state once. So that was my only thing on my bucket list before that. So I did list out every state. That took up, I don't know, a quarter of the list. So then it just kind of forced me to identify some other things. And one of the things I put on there was to start a blog. And I don't really even know why necessarily. I know part of it is I'm really not on social media. And some people in my life are like, oh, we never get to hear about your life. I especially think about my dad's family. They live a couple hours away. So, they don't always see the pictures that people are normally posting on social media, that kind of thing. And then people just like they heard about the travel challenge, they heard about the dog thing, and they just kept asking and just wanted to hear about it. And so that's kind of how I started the blog, was talking about those two things. And then just it's continued into the other items on the 100 dreams list among a couple other categories that I have going on there. But
So 100 dreams. That is a lot. That would take me a while too. Was there any prompts to help you figure out?
If I recall right, it was kind of just even simple things, write them down. So for the states, it was like, if you want to visit every state, that's not one thing. That's every state is a different thing.
Okay.
So
you knocked out 52 items right there?
Well, no, because I'd already done about half. So that probably qualified for, let's say, 25, 30 of the items. And then, the rest was just kind of really over that year trying to figure out and slowly adding. I think at the end I got a little desperate where I wasn't putting as much time into thinking about it. I was mostly just like Googling other people's bucket lists, and my friend Brianne, she's got a couple bucket list type things going on. So reading other people's and be like, oh, that sounds fun, and adding it to mine. But for the most part, it was pretty thought out.
And then how long do you have to complete it, or your whole life?
Yeah.
Just having it written out, I can see how that's super important to have written out.
Yeah, for sure. It always gives you something to work on.
Cool. So Prague and Czech. What other adventures are coming up?
So that is coming up. Yep. I'm trying to think. So on my 100 dreams list, I have kind of a little bit of a side list because my friend gave me for my birthday, not this last birthday, but the year before, the Minnesota Adventure bucket list. So it's this box of 50 scratch-off cards. And at the top of the card, it says a city in Minnesota. At the bottom, it kind of gives you some ideas, like, does it cost money? Is it relaxing? What time of year should you do it? Like that kind of thing. But then you don't know what is on the card until you scratch it off. So there's 50 of those.
So you can look through and be like, okay, this is the right time of year. This doesn't cost any money. I'm going to scratch this one off. But once you scratch it off, you got to do it?
You got to go do it, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So I have on my 100 Dreams list to do that. So I've been doing a lot of those over the past, well, really since the start of this year. I had an injury that kind of laid me up for a couple months, so I wasn't able to do as many things I would have maybe normally done. And then same with just my dog. He is really old. He is 15 now. He's still here, but he does not like when we leave really very much. So over the past year, we've hardly left him. So I'm just really kind of trying to keep within the state. And a lot of my, especially travel goals, were not so. So I'm really making a lot of headway on that Minnesota adventure bucket list, which has been a lot of fun too.
What's the scariest thing on your 100 Dreams list?
Physically, there's a couple things some people would probably think is scary. I have ice climbing on there. I was planning to do that this winter, but fractured elbow, you couldn't really do it. I have kite surfing on there as well. I think some people would, on Mille Lacs is where I want to do that. I think some people would think that's a little intimidating. Emotionally, I have forgive everyone. So some people would probably think that is kind of emotionally scary.
So is there still people from your past you have to forgive? Or are you
Yeah.
thinking like for the rest of your life, just make sure you forgive people as you get mad at them?
Well, I would like to do that as well. But I think I actually have been working on that one. I identified kind of 6 people, myself being one of them, that I really felt like I've been just holding on to unresolved hurts or pains or anger. Um, so I'm slowly making my way through that by just writing letters that I'm not going to give these people, but just kind of writing letters that that I have or I'm going to then get rid of in kind of a little bit of a ceremonious way. The first one I actually let it go in a lake, like I was on the boat and put it in the water and let it go. There's 2 others I have written that I'm planning to burn. So yeah, so that's kind of emotionally deep, one of the items on there.
That's something I have to remember is like you can write a letter and then not give it to the person. And when I have done that, it feels really good.
Yeah, sometimes I think just writing it out.
So that it stops like floating around your brain.
Yep. There's something healing about it for sure.
So our mutual friend, I asked her what question I should ask you, and she said to ask you who your best favorite boss ever was.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Trying to think of a really clever answer for that. I probably will think of something really clever around like 10, 11 p.m. tonight. But I think I know what she's getting at. Jen was an awesome boss. Just so laid back. And when I worked in her department, I wasn't used to that only because she had a small department of just really high performing individuals kind of working at the top of their scope. And she would even tell you she probably didn't even really feel like the manager. I mean, she was the manager, but she didn't have to do a whole lot of actual managing. It was a group of people that really just were very professional, to sum up. And then she's just so approachable, so non-judgmental. I can't tell you how many times we were talking about things that she did not need to talk to me about being my boss, but she's awesome. So,
Natural therapist.
so now she's working in therapy. She's not my boss anymore, but her clients are really lucky to have her.
So let's get into your job. What is your job title?
So I'm an RN. I work as a care coordinator in an addiction medicine clinic. So I've been working in this role for about 7 years now. Before that, I kind of worked my way up. I didn't do the 4-year school, kind of did in nursing. You can start as a nursing assistant and then get your LPN and then your RN. You can go on to be a nurse practitioner if you want. So I kind of did that route for a variety of reasons. So I've been working in healthcare since 2008, starting just kind of at the bottom and doing school through a lot of it while I was just working.
So what's your day-to-day like? Are you working one-on-one with people struggling with addictions?
Yep. Yeah, I just kind of help them navigate the healthcare system. I feel like a therapist some days, which I don't mind. I like getting to know the clients. I work a lot with them, especially in the beginning when they're entering our program, just kind of helping them with whatever they need, really. We prescribe medication, so a lot of it's teaching about that and making sure that's going okay, but then it's also navigating referrals, whether it be to chemical dependency treatment or therapy or meetings, rides, that kind of thing. So it's been a really tough but rewarding position.
What led you into this role?
So I grew up in a house that included someone who struggled with addiction, and I'm certain that's why I'm in this role. I'm positive of it. I'm actually pretty sure that's why I'm a nurse in general. I think it was just kind of it was an easy to come by career path for someone who was raised how I was.
But it wasn't a conscious decision. It was just, this is where you found yourself.
Yeah,
Oh,
kind of.
wow.
Yeah, like I didn't grow up wanting to be a nurse. But when I was in college, it was just kind of the path that seemed right. And I think it was an easy role for me to take on. I think I can be really good at it. I have a lot of natural caretaking ability, I would say. So yeah.
And you yourself don't seem to have any vices. Like, you don't have social media, you don't scroll, you don't overeat. I've never seen you overdrink. I mean, I'm sure you probably would say, yeah, I've drank too much sometimes, but I've never seen you like out of control. So what is your vice?
Well, I am pretty bad about sugar, and I know I'm like a fangirl of your podcast, I guess. I think I'm all caught up on all the episodes. So I know you talked about that a lot. I definitely overindulge in sugar, and I definitely will use it if I'm stressed or sad, that kind of thing. Coffee, I think, would be the saddest thing for me to give up. And I don't know that I even use it as a vice. I really don't think I do, because I'm not someone who caffeine wakes up. Like, I could drink this, go to bed. I don't get caffeine headaches. I don't drink a pot of coffee. I drink 2 cups of coffee a day. If I'm just like on a rare day, I'll drink a third. But
it's not something that you're like, I should give this up. Like, it doesn't seem to be any reason to.
no, but I
Yeah.
think it'd be the saddest thing for me to give
Yeah.
up, because
Right.
it is like every day. That is how I start my day every day. I love mornings. I love drinking my coffee. And I think it would just be so sad to give up. Like,
Yeah.
physically, I hope I never have to give it
Yeah.
up for any
Yeah.
reason.
Like me and blankets, I talked about in my first episode.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to. It's not like I'm addicted to them and it's a problem, but it was just like, if I wanted to be that strong and give up the thing that would make me the saddest.
Yes,
But
exactly.
we'll see if it ever happens. But yeah, so do you see any patterns in the people who are able to quit their addictions, the people that you're helping?
I would say a huge piece of it is that they want it to some degree, at least. There's a lot of different thoughts out there about the laws around drugs and alcohol. I can see both sides of the talk. I can see both sides of people who say, nope, they're breaking the law, they need to go to jail, blah, blah, blah. And I can see the other side of, that's not going to help the problem. So I think the people who have been most successful, there's a piece of them in there that wants it. Like, they're not forced by either friends, family, or the law to do it. I also think, especially for opioid addiction, but there's medications out there for alcohol addiction too. Unfortunately, there's not meds out there for meth addiction yet, really, some off-label options, but I think the combination of medication, but then also some other kind of treatment, is the combo that gives people the chance of the best success. We have some people come in and they just want to be on medication. We will do that because we're trying to meet people where they are, at least within our program. But I think the chance of success is better if they're participating in something else as well. And that doesn't necessarily always have to be treatment. It could be counseling, it could be support groups, it could be online support groups. But just having that other piece where you're learning coping skills, where you're, learning, or not learning, but meeting a new network of people, because a lot of times that's what causes people to relapse is they come in, they do treatment for a while, they're away from the situations and the people that they were using with. But if they go back into the same environment, it can be really difficult.
Is that the same as replacing it with something like if you're replacing it with exercise or religion or something, or do you think the people factor that you brought up is the most important?
Um, I think if you can find something healthy to replace it in, I think that can be, or replace it with, excuse me. I think that can help for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the patients I work with, they come in and they don't, I mean, they've spiraled so far out of the control. Like they don't have a job, they don't have really anything in their life that's like going for them, that's giving them a lot of purpose. So they could be sober, but then again, if you're, let's say you're sober for 3 months in treatment, you go back, but now you don't have work, then you have all this idle time and you're not really feeling fulfilled. And it doesn't have to be work. It could be running. It could be a lot of different things, but just finding something else to kind of help you stay somewhat busy. I'm not really a believer in like busying everything away because I think that can be unhealthy, but filling up some of that time so you're not just sitting there bored, and then also just feeling fulfilled.
My brain is going to. Did you ever watch that movie? Are you a movie person? What's that movie called? Um, Everywhere, Somewhere, All the Time.
Everywhere, everything, all at once.
Everywhere, what is it?
No.
Let me fact check this.
So the concept that I got out of that movie is basically if you do something different than your brain is used to doing, like if you brush your teeth with the other hand or standing on one foot, and you do something that different, your brain is kind of rewired. And so I think like at an extreme level with addicts that get to that they have to change something bigger.
Sure.
And for people struggling with smaller things, that's where it's like, stand on one foot when you brush your teeth.
Sure.
But I think maybe it's something big has to change. So you can't go back to the same environment. You can't just be around the same people and make no new changes and just go off of what you learned in the last 3 months. You have to do something extreme.
Yeah, for sure. And that's easier said than done, right? Like you have your whole life in one spot, or even, I mean, to cut people out of your life, I mean, it's hard.
Definitely. So how you see addiction changed since you got this job?
So to answer that, we have to go way back, I would say. So if you're good with that, I will.
Yes.
Okay. So I grew up in a home. My parents separated when I was very young. I don't know exactly what age, but I would guess kindergarten, first grade, somewhere around there. My dad still is an over-the-road trucker. He's more localized in recent years, but most of my life he was over the road. So between my parents being split and then his job, he was just very absent. My mom struggled with alcoholism and opioid addiction, along with just several mental health diagnoses and some physical health diagnoses that were related to her alcohol use. So I grew up in a very chaotic, very neglectful, not on purpose, but that's just how it was, home, thinking I knew a lot about alcohol and drug use. And I did. I mean, I lived it, not personally, but was affected by it my whole life, still am. So I kind of had a lot of thoughts about it, a lot of hard thoughts, anger, sadness, fear of it.
At what age did you realize that your mom was an addict?
So with the alcohol, the summer between 4th grade and 5th grade, I can distinctly remember being in a doctor's office and him telling her she had to quit drinking or she would die. I can remember the room. I can remember everything about it. And thinking back, I actually think she had gone to treatment once before, and my grandma had stayed with us. And I don't think I understood what that meant. But exactly like what we talked about, she came back to the same environment. And so it really didn't last long.
So when you heard that, did it feel like a shock, or did part of you like, oh, yeah, I kind of knew this?
I don't think I understood the problem still because I was so young. Like, I understood it was serious, but I didn't understand what the problem was. And I was used to her drinking so much that, I mean, she'd be passed out and I'd be making dinner, that kind of thing. But for me, that was just normal at that age. So I didn't know that everyone's family wasn't like that. That conversation led us to move here. So we moved from south of the city's New Prague up here. Her mom had lived up here at the time on Knife Lake. So my brother and I stayed with her while my mom went back into treatment and had decided at that time that she couldn't go back to the same environment, so we had to move. And I remember being just devastated about the move. Still am very social. I had a lot of friends. You know, it felt like the end of the world. My mom wasn't with us, so that was obviously hard. My dad's whole family is still around New Prague, so I was leaving all of them as well. And it took a while for me to grasp really the true meaning of like the addiction. All I really knew was we had to move and my mom is away now for a while. So she went to treatment, came back, we stayed with my grandma for a while, and she relapsed sometime in there. My grandma, this is not to say it's her fault at all, but I think for a lot of people, you know, once you're an adult, living with your parent can be really hard. And so I think without trying, she was just kind of a trigger for my mom to end up drinking again. And again, not her fault, just think it wasn't the best environment for her either. So she started drinking again, went back to treatment. And when she got out, we moved into our own place, a townhome right in Mora. And that was when I was around 7th grade. And I think I maybe still didn't totally understand, started to understand a little.
How were you explaining it to your friends that you were meeting?
I didn't have a lot of friends at my house, I would say. And I don't know if they knew to ask at that young age either. And at that point, she had quit drinking, and I didn't know this. I didn't recognize this till years later, that's when her opiate addiction started. So she was sober from alcohol, actually, from the time I was in about 7th grade up into my college years. She, as far as I know, had not drank at all. But she was using pills instead. And
were they prescribed?
So they were prescribed to start with, yeah. At that time, doctors, I think, were taught to do that. That was what you did for people in pain. And my mom had cirrhosis of her liver. She had just physical symptoms that would warrant that at the time. And so she got prescribed prescription pain pills.
Did you watch that movie about the Sackler family, the family who created OxyContin?
The movie or there was an 8-episode series on Hulu about it, Dope Sick. I did watch that, and I read the book. Very interesting.
Yeah, that was with actors playing the parts, though. And what's his name from Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Matthew Broderick, that one?
I don't remember the actors real well, but very powerful. Actually, that's one of the rare times I will say that series. I think there was also a movie, so you may be talking about the movie, and I might be talking about the series.
Veda, did you find the one with Matthew Broderick?
But I think the series was actually better than the book, in my opinion, and I know that's a very rare one.
Oh, Painkiller is the one I'm talking about, and it's literally just horrible how many people died, and they knew people were dying, and they were still pushing the doctors to prescribe.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so sickening.
Yep, for sure. And that's how, side note, that's how I have a handful of my patients now. They're a little older. They've been on pain pills for a long time. And now they're getting to the point where they can't find a doctor to prescribe them anymore because our younger doctors weren't trained that way. So, yeah, it is really sad.
So then they're going to straight jogs?
Some of them, yeah. Yeah, so my mom, as far as I know, she never used heroin, and fentanyl was not the big thing it is now. But she definitely was overusing her painkillers, trading, buying from people in my neighborhood. So she definitely had a problem. And my whole high school was high/out of it, dope sick. High, dope sick, high. Somewhere in there would be just like so depressed to really do anything. It was just this never-ending cycle. There was times when I can remember going to see her in the hospital and she'd be hallucinating, didn't know who I was, seeing things in the air, kind of picking them out.
And you said you didn't know it was the pills. You didn't know
I
that's
I
what.
didn't. I don't think I understood at the time that that's what was going on. She would not have admitted to it. And at the time, the whole opioid epidemic like wasn't a well-known thing. So I don't think I really knew exactly what was happening, but it wasn't until I was kind of older that I really realized that's what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that cycle continued. When I left for college, she still was not drinking. The pills were a problem, but it was kind of one of those like out of sight, out of mind things a little bit for me.
What was your relationship like together? Did you hang out? Did you talk?
I wouldn't say we hung out, but I developed a very codependent relationship on my mom. So hearing all this, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, I would be wanting to get out of there as soon as possible. I would hate my mom. That sounds terrible. But when I left for college, I mean, I called her every day. I did not want to be away, even though I did want to be away. It's kind of it's a weird situation because you're always worried. You're always worried something's going to happen. You don't really know how to function outside of this other human that you've been like being there and working around your whole life. And it's very common for people who grow up in alcoholic or drug addicted households to develop codependency kind of habits. Again, I didn't know that's what was the deal at the time, but I know a lot of it now. So she was free of alcohol until so I moved back to this area, not in with her, but back to this area in 2010. And it was around that time that she had started drinking again. So she had moved out of the townhome we had been living in into a different kind of apartment. I think she maybe didn't qualify to live there anymore because I had graduated, my brother had graduated. So that was kind of more of a family situation. She met a guy, and again, I'm not blaming him, but he drank, and I think that just kind of led to her drinking. I can still remember I was going to, it would have been Bo's at the time, but Kev's. And I was going to some event there because it was in the back room. And I walked in, and my mom was just like at the bar with a glass of wine. And that's how I found out she had started drinking again. And when I approached her about it, she acted like it was just not a big deal. And I was so angry and so just floored by the whole situation that that's when our relationship, I would say, really deteriorated. I remember still going to whatever event I was going to and leaving and not talking to her, and just that's when we had a lot of arguing from then forward, just about the whole drinking and her not really seeing it as an issue and me obviously seeing it as an issue. We kind of went like that for a while, where when we did talk, it was really on edge. She got to a point where so the guy she had been dating, they actually got married. He was quite a bit older than her, but I think it was the first real relationship she really had in a lot of years, and so I think it just kind of spiraled really quickly. They got married, and they decided to buy an RV, and they were going to go travel, and they had gone on a couple trips before that. And my mom never really, none of us, we never went on trips growing up. So I was happy for her that she got to do that. And when they bought the RV, I remember thinking, good, this will get them out of here. This is what she needs. She needs a change of scenery. It's going to help the drinking. And they left. I, to this day, don't know where all they went. We didn't talk a lot during that time. But I do remember there was a time when she texted me and asked if I came home, would you see me? And up until that point, yes, we had been arguing, but I was always too scared to really put my foot down about anything. I was too scared that I would do that and then something bad would happen. And I told her, only if you're sober. And she, as far as
So
I
it was
can
the first
remember.
time you said something that strict.
Yeah. As far as I can remember, she didn't say anything more. And I knew she wasn't, just based on how she was texting, you know. And it was not too long after that, I couldn't tell you exactly how long, that I found out she was much sicker than I knew. I found out in the weirdest way. So her husband had a relative who was a classmate of my brother. And again, both of us were out of school and everything, but they still were connected on Facebook or whatever. And she messaged my brother asking or saying, I'm so sorry about your mom. I heard she's on hospice. Is there anything you need? And for people who don't know, hospice is usually like end of life care, 6 months or less, usually. Obviously, it can go a lot quicker and people can outlive the expectancy, but that's what we're being told, and neither of us had any idea. So, my brother was texting me, and I can remember this day, again, like it was yesterday. I can remember most of this day. It was in the morning. It was a Wednesday. I was going to work. I was working as an LPN at the time, and I was working with a provider who just worked half days on Wednesdays. So my brother started texting me this, and we were both confused, but I was also like, okay, hospice, like 6 months. I wasn't panicked. And I'd also been like this my whole life too. Like when you're raised in that environment, or if you love someone who is an addict, you worry, but you're also like, I've been worried before. Like they've overdosed before and they're fine. You never think it's going to be the time when something bad's going to happen, even though you're always worried something bad's going to happen. So it's a weird dynamic. But so I kept working. Tried to call my mom, didn't get an answer. You know, I was kind of distracted by it, but also at work. I left work around noon, and I still wasn't panicked, but I couldn't get a hold of her. And I went to the gym, I remember even. But I remember being on the elliptical and just being like, I'm too distracted. Like, I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm just going to leave. I left. I drove to the library park in Mora because my service at home is crap. So I'm like, I'm going to keep trying to call while I'm still in town. Tried to call her husband, couldn't get a hold of anyone. Tried to call a family friend who lives around here. She didn't know anything, but she said she'd keep trying to call. So really just couldn't find anything out. And one thing I don't remember is how I finally got a hold of someone, but I did finally talk to her husband. And he's like, yeah, it's not good. We're in the hospital. We're in Florida. She had signed off for me to be able to talk to the nurses. So a nurse called me and said, yeah, she's on hospice. She's too out of it. Like, she's not awake enough to talk to you is why you can't get a hold of her. And on hospice, that can be part of it. You know, you're giving a lot of pain medication and stuff and trying to keep the patient comfortable. So at that point, I'd never actually traveled anywhere. This was in 2014. I'd never been on a plane. But my brother and I, we booked tickets to get down there the next morning. He was living in St. Cloud. He came to my house. We were leaving like the 6 a.m. flight. But we both thought, you know, we'll just stay here and get up super early. We're not going to sleep if we go to a hotel. We're probably not going to sleep anyway. So we stayed at my house, and I'd been on the phone just like so much that day because I kept trying to call even after that. I'm like, I got to keep calling. I kept trying to call. I'd get the nurse. I'd talk to her husband. It was just like a whole thing. I can remember sitting there, and my husband had made dinner. My brother and I, we don't really talk about all this. Like, I love him. He's my brother. And obviously we stuck together a lot growing up, but we've never really delved into this kind of thing. We've never had that relationship. So I remember him being in our spare bedroom, just kind of off by himself. And my mom's husband called, and Matt was like, I was mid-fork, like fork in the mouth. And Matt was like, just let it go to voicemail. Like, just, it's fine. You can call him back when you're done eating. And that's how I found out my mom passed away, was in that voicemail. And so, to answer your question in a really long way, I had all these ideas around addiction, a lot of experience in it, a lot of emotion around it. And when I started working in the program I work in now, I had a lot of compassion because of how I grew up. I wanted to be that medical person that could help. When I watched medical people try to help my mom for a lot of years, I had a lot of patience for it. I still do. But I would say the biggest thing for me that I've gotten out of it, and it's not about that, obviously, it's about the patient, but the biggest mindset shift has been, I grew up my whole life thinking, why was I and my brother not enough to overcome this? And it's been working with these patients that has shown me it was never about that. And so that's been the most rewarding part for me. Not to make it all about me, but yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know any of that, and honestly, I thought that your mom had died when you were in grade school just because of how well-rounded you are and how much you have your life together. I didn't know that you were an adult and already married, and I'm glad Matt was there for you. Did you open up? I asked you when you were in grade school and moved here if you were letting people in at this point. Were you letting people in?
So Matt and I weren't married yet when this happened, but we were living together, so he was there. It's not something that I've talked a lot about. Not that I won't. It's just partly that's me. Like, I'm kind of more the listener. I like that. Partly one of the big things that comes from living in a household like that is just like a deep abandonment fear. It's something I've worked on a lot, especially in the last couple of years. But for that reason, I think I'm very social. I feel like I have a lot of friends, but I let very few of them in. So it's really only, like, really in.
Mm-hmm.
It's really only my closest friends that know a lot about this.
And do you still struggle that your friends and husband will abandon you?
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Not even necessarily like in their choosing, but just that it would happen. Like, they will die or they will leave, they'll move, things will change. It's something that, so over the last 2 years, really since the time we spent in Banff, I've been really working on myself a lot. I've been going to therapy. I've been doing a lot of self-help, a lot of growth. And a lot of it has to do with addressing these things that I just never did. It's for exactly the reasons you said. And it's actually funny, one of your recent podcasts, they put it perfectly. They were talking about something else. I think it was Leah. She was talking about, it's almost better for people who have a drug or alcohol problem to really spiral, because then maybe they'll quit, versus people who can still hold it together. And I think not that my life is terrible by any means. I overall have been able to create, a very happy and successful life. But I've never addressed this stuff from my childhood until the last couple years. And it is affecting me a lot internally, but also affecting relationships in my life, not just romantic relationships, just relationships in general, in not so positive ways, because I'm bringing in these habits and these feelings and these insecurities, and unfortunately it's coming out especially at the people I'm closest to. And sometimes it's not a big deal, and then other times it can be. So I've been really just addressing that.
Like, are you subconsciously pushing them away to see if they'll stay?
There can be some of that, yeah. So the things I've really focused on in my growth have been codependency habits, anxious attachment habits, and then just there's this. So a lot of people have heard of AA. A lot of people have heard of Al-Anon, which is like support for people who care about or love people with addictions. And then there's this kind of subgroup off of it called adult children of alcoholics. And it's kind of all about this, like all these things we kind of carry with that can negatively impact, especially relationships, but like sometimes jobs, sometimes just other life pieces in general. And then just a lot of internally, sorry, not eternally, just a lot of unnecessary internal stress. But yeah, sometimes pushing people away. I would say lack of boundaries has been a huge thing that's caused me some interpersonal relationship, again, not just romantic struggles. Lack of boundaries is a big one. And then just kind of like always needing to be in control a little bit. And for me, when that has come out with others, it's coming from a place of caring, but it's not always that doesn't always mean it's the right thing. Like the intention might be good, but it doesn't always have the intended outcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and do you see that in work too, like trying to control any of your patients? Because also I feel like it wouldn't be odd if at work you were trying to save these people, like, you know, like feeling like you could have saved your mom. Do you find yourself doing that at all?
I think it's a little bit of a different dynamic at work. I would say that, so as a program, we have really tried to be like meeting the patient where they are. So I think I have a little better of a not pushing them. Also, they're not directly in my life outside of work, so I think it's a whole different dynamic. However, I will say I think I take it really hard if I'm like, why aren't they doing this? Or why can't they just see this or that? And again, that's just causing like an internal stress that isn't necessarily because I can't control anyone, not even really myself when it comes to a lot of things. Kind of the giving up the illusion of control has been a big thing I've been working on the last couple of years.
Where are you at in feeling like you are enough?
I think that, like I said, I think work has really helped that.
Like understand addiction and that like it takes over and shuts people's brains off and there's nothing they can do about it.
Correct. Yeah, I think it has really helped with that. I think that I'm still really hard on myself, which again can be a very common thing with some of these codependency things, like just judging yourself really harshly. But I think as far as there's people in my life where I'm like, okay, I feel like, yeah, I am good enough, maybe just not for myself. And even though I do feel better, there's still that like fear of abandonment. Like if it's not a choice of theirs, it's just going to happen otherwise, you know, that kind of thing.
And you said one of your 100 dreams is forgiving others and yourself. Where are you at with that?
So I mentioned 6 people, myself included. I've written 4 of the letters. So there's 2 I still have yet to write. I feel like I'm just not quite ready. And then 3 I still have yet to do anything with. So they're written, but they're not kind of released. So I think that exercise really helps. There's a couple, I've been reading a ton of self-help books, not all so serious, like, you know, some about just like scheduling and things like that, but a lot have been pretty serious, and I read a couple just on forgiveness, so I've done some exercises in those as well, kind of on a consistent basis. I heard from a different podcast that forgiveness and acceptance is when you can not wish something would have happened differently. Like that's how you'll know. And so I'm kind of using that a little bit to judge if I really have forgiven these people. It's kind of like the bar to when I'll know, like, hey, I really have let that go.
I really like that. And how about yourself? Can you share what you want to forgive yourself for?
A lot of it is just, like I mentioned, some of the habits that I've brought into my life and into the people I care about or have cared about's lives that unintentionally have impacted them in negative ways. But again, I just judge myself super harshly. So even mistakes I've made that are small, I just have a hard time forgiving myself for being human, really.
So maybe it's like an ongoing letter for you.
Yeah. There's this there's this concept of reparenting. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Or inner child healing. It can okay, those are the same thing, essentially. So that's something I've been working on since therapy is inner child healing. It's probably the number one treatment for all those codependency, adult children, all that stuff that I talked about. That's going to be an ongoing thing forever. So ongoingly continuing to forgive myself when I am human will be a part of that.
You had mentioned liking something we talked about in a different episode, talking about how people do what they're emotionally capable of, with Mike Gunderson. So do you realize that with your mom, that she was doing what she was capable of?
Yeah, for sure. I know that, I don't know all the details, but I do know that she had some traumatic events happen that probably led to her addiction. I know that genetically she was also very predisposed. So she was one of 4 children in her household. One of them committed suicide when he was pretty young. The other 2 also struggled with addiction. So even knowing those things, it's helpful. But as the child, you still just think you should have been enough. So it's hard to kind of unroot that. And again, it wasn't until I saw it in other people from a little further away perspective that I've really been able to understand that it really wasn't about that. But yes, I did like that. I think that that's also where I'm at. I think that part of why I didn't work on this before, aside from that I didn't see how it was impacting me, and even when it wasn't always like in these detrimental ways. But I think that people kind of work on these issues when they are feeling emotionally ready and maybe in a more safe and stable environment.
So you have a strong faith in God. How does all of this play into that?
Well, I have been a little all over when it comes to church throughout my life. Not because of this per se, but because of our move and such. I grew up in New Prague going to a Catholic church because that is still the big church in that town. This beautiful, when you think of like a big Catholic church, it's like that. When I lived there, that's where everybody went. I don't know if it's changed since then, but that's where everybody went. So I did First Communion through there, and that's what I thought of as church, right? We moved up here. We did start going to the Catholic church in town for a little bit, and there just wasn't the same, feel, I don't think. And we, through that family friend I mentioned, later started going to a Baptist church, so we went there for a little bit. Somehow, and I still to this day do not remember how, but I got connected with a youth group at Pomeroy Chapel, which is just a non-denominational church, and that's where I spent my whole high school, like going to that church, just me, not the rest of my family. Somebody else from the youth group would pick me up. And I loved that church. I thought it was so great. And then it was right around the time I graduated that the pastor left, and then obviously I left too. And pastors are kind of like teachers, or kind of like a lot of things where they can kind of make or break it. I remember they didn't have one for a while, and so that's how I stopped going there. And then during college, it kind of didn't really go. And then when I came back, it was hard to find one that fit. I tried going to my now husband's church at the time that was a Lutheran church. It was not for me. I knew I disagreed with a lot of things there, and this is not to like crap on anyone's religion by any means, but I knew it was not my thing. And it was actually when we were looking for a pastor to marry us that we went back to the Baptist church that I had gone to a little bit with my mom. And there was a different pastor then during that time. And we met with him, and my husband actually really liked him. So he married us, and so we went there for a while. And then again, it was during COVID that he left the church. So then we were kind of, again, not really had a church home until the last couple years. We started going to a church in Isle that's just a non-denominational church. So to sum up, I've tried a lot of different things, and I know what I absolutely am like, that's not for me. For me, I think one draw I have to the non-denominational churches is they seem more about the relationship and not so much about the traditions. And I think there's a place and a time for traditions. I think that some of my just yearly traditions are like what I look forward to in the year. Like, I'm not saying that should be out of there, but I've been to churches where I don't think we talked about Jesus because we were just saying this prayer and standing up here and doing this, and I left there just like, okay, that's fine, but this is not like meaningful to me.
This isn't helping me get closer to God.
Yeah, so right now I am probably the most feeling close to Jesus, or feeling the deepest in my faith that I have in a long time, because I've been more focused on the relationship. And I will say, I'm on a year-long challenge of reading the Bible. I will say the more I learn, either through reading or through church or through wherever, the more questions I do have. So there's a lot of just like unanswered things for me. However, I think that that's kind of good in a way, because it keeps me wanting to learn more.
Do you ask God? Does he ever tell you the answers eventually?
I think eventually, most of the time, at least, and this was even before, I think a lot of times when it comes to big things in our life, we understand eventually why they happened or didn't happen the way that we expected or thought they would. But I just mean kind of in general when it comes to some of the biblical things, like questions I can only ask when I someday get to heaven, right? Yeah, that's been really interesting. But I think that, like any hard thing, when you have faith in something like God or whatever, you can ask kind of why. Why did things happen this way? Why did I have to grow up this way? Why?
Do you ever get mad at God for
I
taking
have.
your mom?
For sure, I have. And that's the one thing when I brought up that quote before about acceptance and forgiveness, I truly think that that's true. To truly accept something, you have to like not wish it was different, right? I think that that's true, except I don't think I could ever not wish my mom was here.
Well, that would feel like abandoning her and letting her down, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would feel like that for sure. And I think that no matter how hard it was, I will always wish she was here, even if life is maybe better or easier without her here. Because there's just always that, well, I don't have this thing that most other people in my life do. I don't have, this adult that is supposed to be there for me and whatnot. But so yeah, I think it can get to a point of being angry for sure. I think I've kind of moved past it with that. But I do think it's easy when hard things happen to get angry at whatever you believe in, whether it be God or the universe or whatever else. I think you can kind of have this step back and trust and that kind of thing. But I think it's how you move forward that is most important.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite thing about your mom?
Gosh, that is a hard question. I would say two things. I do think that she is part of where I got my love for music, both in a happy way and a sad way. I think music was an escape for me a lot of times growing up. But I also think that, or I know that she loved music. I remember her telling me about going and singing karaoke, and I never saw it except at home. And a lot of times she was drunk, but it would be the record player and her just singing along and looking so happy. So that is that's something that will always make me smile, even if it was during a time of just drunken whatever. And then I can also, even though it's not my favorite smell, I can also just like almost get a whiff of her if I just think hard enough about it. It was a sweet pea vanilla mixed with cigarette smoke. It's kind of that. But that's kind of a big nostalgic thing for me. I still have one of her shirts, and it's amazing how cigarette smoke does not come out of clothing, but it still just kind of makes me smile when I go smell it, even though that's obviously not the best smell in the world.
Yeah, but it's comforting.
Mm-hmm.
It's from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a podcast about smells, and vanilla is a overall smell that universally loved because it smells like breast milk.
Oh.
And the smell that is universally disliked is rotting bodies.
Well, I guess I would kind of hope so.
But otherwise, even if like you grew up around sulfur or skunks, like you're gonna like that smell when you get older because it was the smell of your childhood.
Yeah, I mean, I think they say the sense of smell is one of the most powerful things
To bring back memory, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite memory of your mom?
I can't think of one in particular, but I do think being at the lake. So my grandma, I mentioned she lived on Knife Lake. So during the time we had moved up here in her early years of alcohol sobriety, we spent a lot of time on the lake. And I remember her fishing, and I remember her being happy. And it's part of why I love going to the lake so much
You
now.
do love lakes.
I do love it. It's not the only reason I love it, but it's definitely part of it. And so those were some of my most fond memories. I think my grandma being there too, she was able to kind of help out a little more. And it was probably when my life as a child felt the most stable, would have been in those couple years when she was before the pills, free from the alcohol, and then there was another kind of stable adult there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad that you went and tried more churches instead of just giving up. A lot of people probably go and see that strict lifestyle and see that, they're not getting a relationship with Jesus. They're just reading hymns and super stout about it. So, and I think that's something to remember is the contrast of this planet is what makes us know what we like and what we don't like. So the more you're seeing what you don't like, because people will just be like, oh, I don't like that, I want nothing to do with it. You have to pay attention to the things that you don't like, because that helps you know what you do like. The contrast is so important.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, good job on that. Back to work. Actually, here's something. You told me that sometimes you feel like an adult orphan.
Yeah, for sure.
So that loneliness.
Yeah, and this is just an example, but my husband, he grew up in a family that, no family's perfect, right? But when you think of like the family, it was the perfect family, right? Parents are together, had a happy household. And obviously our relationship is the deepest relationship I have. Not to discount anyone else in my life, but...
Don't get mad, Erin.
Yeah, exactly. But I am so happy he didn't grow up like I did. I would never want that for anyone I care about. But sometimes it is hard.
Is there a little bit of jealousy there?
I don't think it's jealousy. I think it's just, like you said, the feeling of loneliness, the feeling like it's hard when the closest people in your life don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
And where we live, there's not as much support for that kind of thing, or a lot of different things, right? Just being rural, there's not a lot of, support groups. There's not a lot of people who've experienced this type of thing. They're out there, don't get me wrong, but it can be really lonely for sure. it's hard. I went through getting my first house without having my mom there at all. I went through my wedding without having her there, and that was the hardest moment. The only bad piece of that day was that. And then just now, when big things come up, I don't really have that. And this is nothing to discount my dad either, but we've never had that relationship either. So I don't feel like I have that kind of adultier adult. I am very much an adult now, but that presence or that guide, I look to kind of obviously other people in my life for that a little bit, but I also feel like I'm kind of on my own when it comes to being the adult.
Mm-hmm. I know when I feel lonely and I ask God, like, why are you putting me through this lonely stage? And he says, so that you get closer to me. So maybe God just wants you really close to him.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, actually. I've read it a lot. I've heard it
Really?
a lot. Yep.
Really?
Yep. Sometimes that's the only way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Let me see what else I have. What do you wish people knew about people in recovery?
Sometimes I wish that they knew what these people had gone through. And I only say sometimes because it's not everybody. So addiction does not discriminate. It's one of my favorite things to say. I have patients who had that perfect childhood and who were popular in high school, captain the football team even, and didn't really necessarily experience like anything horrific that still ended up in addiction. However, I would say that's kind of more the exception than the rule. Most of the people I work with have gone through trauma that is unimaginable. And so I wish people took a step back and thought about that before judging people with addiction and really tried to put themselves in these people's shoes. And thought, like, if that happened to me, how would I cope? Because sometimes it's with an addiction.
Yeah, but even the other people, because I'm going to butcher this name, but I read the book Never Enough by Judith Grizzle or Grizzly, something like that. And I barely understood the book because it's all science. It's all about the receptors in our brain and how they're all different sizes. And different drugs, sugar, opiates, alcohol, the different drugs fit in the receptors differently, like fill them differently. So that's why we all like different things. That's why some of us, like, sugar's not a big thing. Gambling isn't a big thing for some people. So it doesn't have to do with our personality or what we grew up with as much as it does how our receptors in our brains are formed. So some of these people that haven't had traumaful things happen, but like try something one time and can't quit, it's just the way that their brains were developed.
For sure.
And people are so judgy about it and look down on people so much.
They do. Yeah, for sure. The other thing I wish people would just remember is that nobody grows up wanting to be an addict. Even if that first drink, that first pill, that first whatever was a choice, it can quickly spiral into no longer being a choice. So that's the other thing I wish people would remember.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the reason I am so passionate about addiction is because when I was like 20, I saw an Oprah episode. Oprah wanted to get to the bottom of things and find out why people did what they did. And so she had some drug addicts on and had their brains scanned and like would show their brain normal and then show them a street sign that they used to get drugs from, and a part of their brain would light up, and they said that was the decision making part of their brain, and it lighting up because it would shut off. So like, and that's me with sugar. Like I'll say all day I'm not going to eat sugar, and then you see something and you end up eating it and you didn't consciously make that choice. It's just that part of your brain shut off. So like that hit me so hard back then, and I think that's why I've always had compassion, and that's why I want to talk about it as much as possible, to figure out how to stop shutting that piece of our brain off.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How do you stay grounded?
So I've always been a big proponent of healthy lifestyle. Not to say that I do everything perfect by any means, because I definitely still struggle with sugar. I'm definitely still doing unhealthy things at times. But I have always been really big into kind of more natural therapies. Even as a medical professional, I'm not at all saying people shouldn't be on medications. It is absolutely necessary at times, but I like to practice from a very holistic standpoint. So if we use, let's use restless leg syndrome, for example.
I have that.
Yeah. So I recently went in for that as well. But the provider I saw, she's like, okay, let's test for this, this, and this, because I could give you this medication and it probably will help, or we could try to figure out why. So, especially in our society where I think a lot of times it's easier to just take a pill. I'm kind of more of the, yes, we might need a pill, like we might very well need a medication, but let's also do this. And those are kind of the things that I've built my life around. So exercise, overall healthy eating, again, not saying I don't indulge, not using substances as a crutch, like you said. So for me, I do drink alcohol, and I have had moments that I'm not proud of drinking alcohol for sure. But I also, and this is probably also from how I grew up, I monitor very closely, why am I drinking alcohol? Is it because I'm out with my friends? Is it because I'm celebrating? Is it because I'm on the boat and having a White Claw and staring at the water sounds like perfection? Or is it because I'm stressed? And is it because I'm sad? Is it because I want to sleep? Like those kind of things. So making sure I'm not using anything for that is one piece of how I'm trying to stay grounded. I'm a big exerciser. I think I mentioned I was never good at sports. I tried them all. I was never good at them. Terrible, actually. I think I'm not coordinated. But I do really enjoy working out just on my own. I love running. I've definitely gotten more passionate about that over the last couple years. But just any kind of workout on my own, whether it be weightlifting or going to I shouldn't say just always on my own, going to classes. I love trying new exercise classes, things like that. I think exercise is huge for both your physical and mental health. And then some of the just things you'll hear from every medical provider, right? Trying to get enough sleep. If you are overtired, you're not going to cope with things as well. Trying to eat healthy more than not. And then spiritually, just kind of having some spiritual practices, I should say, that really help me feel fulfilled and grounded. I think that's another aspect. I'm just going to list off all the things. I think having people in your life that are supportive, they can be helping, help ground you as well. For me, therapy has been really beneficial. Big proponent, I'm a big fan, let's say that, of therapy. Even if a lot of people, I think to go to therapy, you have to be like somebody died or you're going into a divorce. Like there has to be a big thing, right? No, not true.
I go because it's Thursday.
Right, exactly. So I've learned some grounding techniques there for sure. That involve, some meditation. I'm still absolutely awful at meditating, but I'm working on it. It's on my 100 dreams list. I have to learn to meditate. But even just, there's like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. So like naming 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you smell, 2 things you feel, 1 thing you taste, that kind of thing. So I incorporate a lot of different things to answer your question, to stay grounded.
Probably keeps you really good at your job.
I hope so. I hope it can help. I try to encourage a lot of these different things with my patients, and this was even before the current patient population I work with, because they can be so helpful, especially in a society, like I said, that is so focused on taking a pill. You can do a lot with eating better and exercising. You can do a lot with making healthier choices overall. Again, not saying you're never going to need a med or that you don't also need a med, but medication can't fix everything.
And also think about, like, who wants you to take this medication? What are they gaining from you taking this medication?
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure there's a lot of that out there.
Because what is something you would change if you were in charge of the mental health in America, the system that you work in? What is something you wish you could change?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I wish that there was more access would be the biggest thing, especially for pediatric. And especially again for therapy and different kinds of therapy.
So what do you mean access for pediatric?
So if you live here and you are a youth and you need a mental health specialist, it is really hard to find without either driving or waiting. With adults, it's a little easier. I know we have one psychiatrist at the hospital, but I would say, the hospital I work at has facilities in Mora or Kanabec County and also Pine County, and there's very few psychiatry options in Pine County. So even as an adult, it can be a wait to get into a place for mental health. And then the other thing is, for example, I was just working with a patient who super depressed, wants to die, like active thoughts of wanting to die, but no plan on acting on those thoughts. But she does not qualify for an inpatient psychiatric stay because she's not sick enough. Even though she's struggling off and on with substances, even though she wants to die, even though she's not taking care of herself physically, even though she's having hallucinations.
So we keep telling people, just talk about it, but even talking about it now isn't helping because there's nothing that can be done.
Well, things can be done, but it's just kind of this fine line of, are you sick enough to need to go because we only have so many beds? So it's kind of it's hard because you or even I see people, I'm like, they need help, but they're just not quite bad enough to get the help they need.
So like twice this week, I've talked to people about postpartum depression and how, 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, if you were having the crazy thoughts of killing your kids, you didn't know that was hormones or that there was something it wasn't your fault you were having those thoughts. So like go talk to somebody about it. Back then you didn't know, like people thought that they were crazy and so they didn't tell anybody that they were having these thoughts, and that's how kids ended up dead. And so what I've said twice this week is, well, now people know, talk about it. But like now I'm super discouraged because it feels like even talking about it isn't going to work.
Don't be discouraged. So there's definitely help. It's just, I shouldn't even tell you not to be discouraged. Sometimes I'm discouraged too. Yeah. So sorry, you could be discouraged.
Well, I was the one who asked what would you change, so.
I do think you should talk about it. 100%. I think you should talk about it. It will hopefully lead to help. It just might not be as fast as you would think. You might have to struggle through insurance stuff. I just wish there was less barriers to getting the help. Less barriers, more access.
I wish that we were as close with people as we used to be. Like my grandma talks about my grandparents, their neighbors, they were with 7 nights a week. 5 nights a week playing cards, 1 night a week going dancing, the other week just hanging out, or the other night just hanging out. And like all we do is sit at home on social media. Not you, you're really good at peopling and not being on social media, but because when you can't get help from the doctors, you need help from your friends and family, but we are all just secluding and isolating ourselves these days.
100% agree. There's a little bit I'll do a little bit of a devil's advocate that will hopefully make you feel better, because I do think there's people out there who would be uncomfortable to say something in person that they will maybe actually say over social media or text or whatever. Which is not always a good thing when it comes to other situations. But when it comes to this, that might be the only way they would open up. So
Yeah.
you could think of it like that.
So I guess technology is good that, maybe back then they wouldn't tell their neighbors the problems that they were having, but now they can go to BetterHelp or these other online places and talk to strangers and, not even have to leave their house if that's too hard. So, yes, there is good too.
It's
a really
both.
good point.
It's both, because then you could also argue, is the isolation actually causing all of this? So
I know.
it's kind of this whole thing.
I know. Was there a story? Did you have a good story about spreading your mom's ashes?
Oh my gosh. Did I tell you that already?
Well, I was looking through our messages and I sent you a clip from a video of Tony Hitchcliffe from Kill Tony. He was talking about spreading somebody's ashes in the ocean, and it was a disaster. So I couldn't remember the story, but I sent it to you for a reason, so I thought there was a story there.
Yeah, and it's not actually, it wasn't my mom's ashes, it was my grandma's. So, yeah, I had held on to her ashes. I still do have my mom's, and I eventually will spread those too. But I was kind of holding on to them. I wanted to spread them both around the island on Knife Lake that my grandma's house looked over. That's where her son, who died when he was young, that's where his are spread. And I knew if I was going to spread them, that's where they'd both want them. For my mom's, I really want my brother to be able to be there if he wants to. So that's what's kind of been waiting there. But if you know about Knife Lake, it's great, and then it's green in like 2 or 3 weeks, I feel like. So I always just miss the window. So last summer, I was like, this is happening. I'm spreading my grandma's ashes this year. Like, let's go. Let's get the boat. We're going. So I was just bound and determined to do it. A windy day. And we get on the boat, my husband, my dog, and me. We start going, and as we're going, I'm testing the waters a little. I've never dealt with people's ashes, so I don't know what they're like. So I kind of dump a little in there. And I don't know what I was envisioning. I was envisioning they would sink, or I don't know. But they were very clearly there. It was very discolored water. I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to dump too much of this, and other boaters are like, what is happening, blah, blah, blah. So I stopped putting them in the water. I'm like, I'll just wait till the island. It's fine. And I don't know if I was unconsciously nervous or just ready to get it over with or what. But we get to the island. I want to spread them. I hop off the boat. My dog hops off the boat. Matt's on the boat, probably figuring out something. I don't know. I start walking up there, and I start just spreading them right away, just without even really, stopping to think or say anything. So I start sprinkling them out. Also, they were just in, the most ridiculous tin can. My mom had them before me. Who knows what she was thinking when she put them in this tin can, but, so I'm, shaking them out of the can. And I didn't realize my dog was right behind me. So I turn mid-shake, and he just walks right into them. And I'm talking, covered. My dog is black. His face is white. Covered. I don't know if you've ever touched human ashes. They are different than, fire pit ashes. Fire pit ashes, after a bonfire, I feel like you can go kind of... They'll blow away, they're light, whatever. My grandma was like a paste. Literally thick. So I'm trying to brush him off. And I've seen dead people at work. I've not, dealt with this side of it, but I'm also not really grossed out about anything like that. Probably because of work. So I'm not really overly grossed out at the time of just trying to wipe him off, but the wiping is going nowhere. He's covered in ash. I'm like, ah! Scream. Pat's like, what? I'm like, Willie's in the ash. He's like, what? He looks over. He's like, you weren't going to just stop and, say anything about your grandma? I'm like, I guess not. I can't get it off of it. Whatever. He's like, get him to the water. So I drag him into the lake. And again, I'm trying to wipe him off, thinking the water would get the ash off. No, it is literally making a thick paste at this point. Matt runs over, he gets a bucket. He's basically waterboarding Willie.
Oh.
We can't get all of it off. What do dogs do when they're wet?
Shake.
My mouth's open, he shakes, it's in my mouth. It's just, it was like a scene from a movie.
Oh my God. And I can picture it.
It was like a scene from a movie, yeah. It was, I don't even know what to say about it. Everyone I told just was basically like, well, I hope your grandma likes dogs. I don't know. Because that's that.
Oh my gosh.
So my grandma is a little bit on that island, a little bit in the lake.
A little bit on Willie forever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Willie's 15.
He's 15.
How are you preparing?
Well, my friends tell me I've been killing him off for a couple years now, which is true because I started that bucket list a couple years ago. I've never had, so I've lost one pet before this. Growing up, I never had pets, so I lost a cat a few years ago. She got hit on the road, and that was really hard. I mean, it's never going to be easy. It was really hard in how it happened, just traumatic, feeling really bad, like, we let this happen, you know, all this stuff. And it would have been sad either way. We had that cat for 2 years. Willie's been my baby since he was 8 months old, and he's now 15, so it's just a whole different thing. It's teaching me to just appreciate every moment. I want to spend as much time with him as possible, which, thinking about it sometimes sounds ridiculous, but over the past year, both Matt and I have really, like, formed our lives around him. We try not to go anywhere more than one night when we can't bring him, because he just really seems to want to be with us, which is, like, so sweet, but then also so hard, because you're like, you can tell it's just because he's anxious. I think it's gonna be real rough. I know it's gonna be real rough when he goes. I mean, it's gonna be, especially, it's not the same, but as someone who doesn't have kids, like, he's my baby. And they say animals can pick their humans. That's how I feel. Like, he's my soul dog for sure. He 100% found me, and yeah, it's gonna be tough, but I think the memories we've made with him, that bucket list, and then just the past year, like, we've done a lot of camping so that we've been able to take him. I haven't done as much traveling as far as out of state or on a plane, that kind of thing. But just beautiful memories that we weren't doing as often before. We did them, but there's just a whole new feel to it now when you're, like, really appreciating it.
And living in the moment, like you said, I think that's the lesson. Like, if you can carry on with that after he goes, that you're appreciating every day that we have here and slowing down.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Yeah.
What is something that you do right now that you hope your godchildren do when they're your age?
I hope that they try or do or go to, etc., the things that they really want to, even if they have to do it alone. I think that's something I've always been good at. I think that comes from how I grew up, and then also just my dad too. That is one thing he's really good at. And I think as women especially, it's pretty uncommon. Like, I remember being at Heydays, if you know what that is, and being mostly with a group of guys and going off and wandering by myself just because I wanted to, and some of them making comments like, geez, my wife won't even go to the grocery store by herself, like that kind of thing. And that's nothing against anyone who's not comfortable doing that, but I do think that it's one of the attributes I have about myself that I really like, because you're not always going to have someone to do things you want to with, and I don't want to miss out on anything, whether it's something small or, like, going to a movie or something like getting on a plane.
It might not be everybody's journey to do things alone, but it's definitely mine, and I think that might be to understand my mom more, because she's so introverted, and just understand why she likes being alone so much. So I went to like 10 concerts last summer, and my very last one I went to by myself, my first ever solo concert, and it was the best one I went to all
I've
summer.
heard that. I have a friend that loves going to concerts by herself too. Yeah.
Don't have to worry about anybody getting too drunk, and then you have to take care of them either.
Yeah, that's a plus, and you can just be on your own time, and you can just really listen to the music, and
What is something that you do right now that you would hope that your godchildren don't do when they're your age?
I hope that they can live more in the present. Even though I am getting better at it, I'm in my head a lot instead of just really living in this present moment. I do a lot of ruminating past things, especially negative things, and then also just future things. I hope it comes easier to them to be out of their heads and in the present more.
I decided to start journaling on Saturdays about the future because I live too much in the future. I don't really live in the past, I don't think. Right now, I don't think that I don't know. I might say something different in an hour, but I think about the future too much. And so I'm like, maybe if I just like give myself an hour every Saturday to journal about what I want for the future, then I won't always be thinking about it. And I can stay in the now more. So we'll see when I start that. I don't know if I will this Saturday or not.
Oh, you haven't started it yet? Gotcha. Have you heard of Mel Robbins?
Love her.
Yeah, she said something about doing that, making a ritual on Sundays to kind of just brain dump about. She was kind of more focused on just the week ahead, but yeah, to kind of brain dump about all the things you're thinking about the week, kind of just get it out. So look at you.
Have you read her book, The Let Them Theory?
No, but I've listened to so many of her podcasts that I almost feel like I know about the book enough without reading it.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I had listened to like 3-4 podcasts. I'm like, I don't gotta get the book. But then I was having a really, really hard time with somebody, and I was stuck with them for a few days. And I was like I need to read this book, so I downloaded it and listened to it, and there's a lot more information, than just getting it drilled in over and over and over again. I mean, I still would recommend.
You'd recommend it? All right, I'll put
It's
it on
really
the
good.
list.
A lot of stuff that she hasn't said in her podcast. So.
Okay. I'll put it on the list.
Awesome. Well, anything else that you want to share?
No, just I'm glad I could come and be supportive of this. I think what you're doing is really awesome.
Thanks so much for being here. Naut comes from the Greek word sailor and means voyager or traveler. Like an astronaut searching the stars, a supernaut is one searching the inner and outer worlds of self, navigating life, consciousness, and reality, striving for betterment. The paradox is that seeking and striving can create more unrest and more unhappiness. So while calm seas may not make great sailors, I plan to explore the idea of light rescuing darkness instead of fighting it.